The world's most controversial black metal band have returned at long last. After a hefty 4 years of waiting since Infinite Granite shocked and delighted in equal measure depending on who you spoke to, this US 5-piece have returned to reclaim their throne as one of the most significant and affecting bands out there right now regardless of genre. Deafheaven's Lonely People with Power is every bit as good as you've been hearing and more besides. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, my name is Ian, this is Rhyme Signatures, and we are once again opening the lid on the best new releases in prog rock and metal. So I, much like every other bearded hipster out there, cut my teeth with Deafheaven on 2013's Sunbather. I heard all the buzz and saw all the controversy, but ultimately I made up my own decision about the album. Now of course I've covered Sunbather a lot on this channel. I did a classics review on it and it featured in my favourite albums of all time video, so it's safe to say I'm a pretty big fan. But my love of Deafheaven didn't stop at Sunbather. I went backwards and enjoyed Roads to Judah, their rough but impressive debut. I grooved to New Bermuda, I shrieked along with Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, and I felt the ethereal warmth and glow from the extremely divisive Infinite Granite. To date, Deafheaven have shown themselves to be one of those few bands I've yet to see put a single foot wrong. Now, you can argue and yell at me all you want about Infinite Granite, you're not going to change my mind on it. For me, it remains one of the most affecting and emotional records of the 2020s, and no amount of wailing that it isn't a real Deafheaven record is going to change my mind on that. But I cannot deny that even I, with the affinity I had for that most shoegazy of their catalogue, was secretly hoping that this wasn't going to be the standard issue for the band going forwards. The last track on that album of Mombasa certainly gave us cause to think that this wouldn't be the case, but bands are fickle things and we never really know where they're going to go next. But I was excited for Lonely People with Power. Of course I was. The band had knocked out 5 home runs in a row, and I was pretty eager to see if they could make it a 6th. Esteemed and cherished viewers, I can't believe I'm actually saying this out loud, but I think they may have outdone themselves here and crafted a new career high point. Right, okay. Deep breaths. I'm having to be very careful here. I am still endeavouring to be taken seriously as a music journalist, and in order to do so, I have to present a balanced, well-articulated and compelling argument about all facets of this album, good and bad. So then why am I finding my default stance on this album to regress into a primitive Homo erectus state and start screaming and crying when thinking about how unspeakably brilliant it is? Oh god, where the hell do I start with this one? Like, really, honestly, for real, I am really struggling to think about where to jump on board here and how to start extolling the significant virtues of Lonely People with Power, and precisely why I think we have a new gold standard not only in black gaze, but for music in general. Right, let's get the obvious point out of the way. Infinite Granite naysayers, your prayers have been firmly answered. This is raw and ready Deafheaven, just like Granite used to make. The clear touchstone for this album is their erstwhile classic Sunbather, but Lonely People manages to be so much more than even that album managed. The band have not sat still since then, of course, each record managing to feel a little bit different but simultaneously crafted from the same base materials. New Bermuda and Ordinary Corrupt Human Love managed to bring their own little sachets to the formula. But what Lonely People is doing here is taking every single component part of each album, filtering out the bloated parts, the less interesting or engaging themes or ideas, and coming up with what is essentially concentrated Deafheaven. Everything is represented here, even the shoegaze and softer vocals of Infinite Granite, albeit less so than the other albums, but this doesn't fall short by coming across as like a greatest hits record. It presents itself as the final form of the band, every other venture feeling like a stepping stone to this frankly astonishing creation. So what's under the box? What's under the hood, you know? 62 minutes of music across 12 tracks with 3 incidentals to break up the action. But rather than feel like afterthoughts or boring filler tracks, each of the incidentals feels crucial to the setup and execution of the album. From the sinister, melancholic atmosphere of the first, to the horrifying noise rock crescendo of the second, and the spacey and introspective third, they all serve not only as palate cleansers for the music that precedes two of them, but also as extraordinary lead-ins to what follows them. The segue from Incidental 2 into album highlight Revelator damn near made my soul leave my body. And then Incidental 3 into Winona most assuredly body slammed me into a state of unconscious bliss that I forgot music was capable of. Now, following extensive listening of the album, it feels like a unified piece of music from start to finish, but also each cluster of 3 songs in a group manages to feel self-contained, with just the right amount of savagery being displayed in sequence before the band applies the brakes just a little bit, to allow some of that shoegaze and more introspective musicality into the equation to keep things from ever feeling truly exhausting. I knew we were in for something special after I heard the pre-release singles of Magnolia and Heathen, but I was not prepared for just how much improved these songs are in the context of the rest of the album. Magnolia being bookended by Doberman and the Garden Route, and Heathen with the Garden Route and Amethyst, serves only to highlight their already considerable strengths. I think Doberman is easily becoming my favourite opening track of any Deafheaven album, with its ferocious riffing, frankly obscene drums, and the welcome return of George Clarke's inimitable banshee scream. Now, I'm just going to address that before we move on. If you didn't like it before, you're not going to like it now. But for someone who's been listening to the band for around 12 years now, the depth and maturation of Clarke's voice is something extraordinary to witness. These kind of vocals are often criticised as being unintelligible, but to my ears at least, Clarke's venom and lyrical poetry is clear as a sunny day. And what poetry it is! The lyrics on Lonely People are absolutely brilliant, full of the kind of vitriol you would expect from this kind of music, but with a sense of intelligence and consideration behind them too. Just take this small excerpt from Doberman as an example. Across the vast wilds of time I laid the grain down the coastline. I wanted the Garden of Eden, but fed my misgivings. I wrestled with strength just like you. I ate from the apple of my ruse and stared into the mirror of my truth, all the time death as my muse. It's just cool as hell, quite frankly, and there's not a single song on here where I don't just want to gush about how well written these lyrics are and how incredibly well they complement the music that surrounds all of them. Where this album really got me though, and this isn't to besmirch the first half, as frankly it kicks ass in ways I'm struggling to describe, but the second half, from Incidental 2 up until the closing track of the marvellous Orange Tree, is where I started to realise that this could finally be the album to actually unseat Sunbather. The variety of sounds on offer here is unlike anything we've ever had from the band before. Take Revelator for it, just as an example. As it explodes out of the starting gates following on from Incidental 2, you'll be forgiven for being taken off guard by the sudden and very abrupt shift to a minimalist guitar line at around 4 minutes in. The breaks are applied hard and fast, and it's almost like your mind is racing past the moment, making it a necessity to rein yourself back in to adjust. But by the time you think you've acclimatized, a minute later, you're thrown off the mountainside once again with your face mashed into the jagged rocks underneath you. The tonal whiplash is extraordinary and showcases just how good the band are at playing with your emotional capacities and toying with expectations throughout the whole of the runtime. The punky, up-tempo grooves of body behaviour with its reverb-laden vocals and incredibly catchy hooks and riffs is another example of just how confident the band are sounding these days, how in control of their sound they've become, and how they've taken these black metal aesthetics and blended them with completely asynchronous musicality to make a sound that feels alone in a sea crowded with other bands who wish they sounded this good at mixing oil and water. Now, it's the final two-hit combo of Winona and the marvellous Orange Tree though which really got me. I cannot stress enough to you what those tracks did to my brain. The first time I heard this album I did so, without headphones, and I love those songs. But when I switched up to wearing my good cans, they left me a hysterical mess. A sign of good art is art that can elicit an extreme emotional reaction, and I bear no shame in saying that I cried my eyes out multiple times during these last two songs. Now, I thought closers like The Pecan Tree could never be beaten for sheer emotional resonance, but I have been firmly corrected. I want to talk more about these two songs, but I also don't really want to spoil too much. All I'm going to say is prepare yourself. You're going on a journey before this album is done with you. Okay, so much like Santa Claus, I've made a list and I'm checking it twice, going to find out who's naughty and nice. And I've come up with a list of very personal cons. So, let's give you a complete stream of consciousness as to what's on my naughty list. Mayonnaise, hangnails, cars who don't use their turn signals, waking up at 3 a.m. because I'm old and I need to pee, paper cuts, mouth ulcers, stubbing my toe on my solid oak bed frame, raisins in biscuits masquerading as chocolate chips, bananas, button flies in trousers. What the hell is wrong with the zip, you absolute maniacs? Losing my beard comb, forgetting to charge my e-bike's battery the night before I want to ride somewhere, the unironic use of the term hollybobs, Temu adverts on every single video ever, cars who overtake my bike close enough that I can physically reach out and twat their wing mirrors, recording a video only to realise that I forgot to actually press record, discovering a new mystery pain in my body every couple of weeks. Look, you're getting the idea. I'm a crotchety old git who doesn't like a lot of things, but I'm sure you've probably noticed a distinct absence on that list. Yes, that's right. Nowhere on my naughty list will you find literally anything from the Deafheaven album Lonely People with Power. I got nothing, guys. This is, for all intents and purposes, flawless. So, what else can I possibly say at this point about Deafheaven's Lonely People with Power? Look, God, I know, I'm a hipster, I'm talking it up too much. Surely there must be something wrong with it. There's no way this album is that good. I'm being paid by Roadrunner Records to say all of these nice things. I'm not a real black metal fan. Deafheaven is a poser band. You're stupid. You're dumb. Look at this idiot's bad take on an overrated album, blah, 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 blah. Now, look, honestly, for real, there are times when I listen to something where I just know. I know I'm listening to an all-timer. When I just know that something is so enjoyable, so complete, so well-rounded, balanced, and intimately constructed that I can call it nothing less than one of the best albums I have ever heard. It has been a hot minute since I've heard something that could disrupt the delicate balance of my well-established top 10 albums of all time, but I can say without a hint of hesitation to my voice that with a little bit more time on my palate, that Lonely People with Power is going to crack that top 10. This is special. This is a tour de force from a band who've proven themselves time and time again, but have come back again to land the haymaker to end all haymakers. If this isn't my album of the year for 2025, then dear God, I can't wait to hear the album that is. Obviously, I had to buy the record on vinyl, you know, so please go pick this one up, guys. Even if you're a certified Deafheaven naysayer, I think it's worth trying this one out. I'm not holding anything back here when I can call this one of the best albums I've ever heard. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion, so if you loved or hated this one, please talk to me about your experiences with the album in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you like the video, please do tell your friends about little old me, and please do drop me a subscription if you've been enjoying my content so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.